Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Paramansa Paribhagavacharya Sakarya Smada Pradipam Saraswati Swami Bhagavad Jai Ananda Kodi Vaishnava Ki Jai Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Names of the whole Sri Krishna Sri Radha Krishna Bho Gopinath Sam Kanda Radha Kundagiri Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai नवदीप धाम की जाए गंगा माई की जाए जमुना माई की जाए द्वारका धाम की जाए स्वामी भक्तवृंद की जाए ऑल ग्लोरी टू दैट ऑल ग्लोरी टू दैट थैंक यू वेरी मच
Hare Krishna, everybody. Hope you can all hear me and see my screen. So it's 7 o'clock and 4 minutes. We'll get started. We'll continue our discussion on the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Karma Yoga. So last time we completed our discussion through verse number 30, was it 32? Hare Krishna. So it's just mentioning that Hare Krishna. I'm just saying that last time I believe we completed discussion through verse number 32, if I remember it right. Even a man of knowledge. Yeah, I think it was 32. So we can continue from verse number 33. Were you there in last class? You probably were not. I'll give a quick recap.
Prabhuji, I am wife of Kashyap, so we are in India from the last 3 weeks. Actually, we didn't get chance
you
to join the class. Sorry,
right.
Yeah.
Hope all is well with you and the family in India. Is it all right?
Not really, Prabhuji. They are all affected with COVID now. So even Kashyap, he is also with COVID. So they are all in home isolation.
Oh,
and
sorry
we are
to
in
hear
a
that.
different place.
Yeah, really sorry to hear that. Well, hope you recover soon. Which part of India?
We are in Hyderabad.
Okay. Yeah, I know the situation all over India is pretty intense. Yeah, I will definitely pray to Krishna.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there's anything we could do, please let us know. Even here, while you're away, if anything needs to be taken care over here, please do let me know.
Sure, Prabhuji. Sure. Thank you for that.
So, quick recap. Yes, please go ahead.
Sure. No, sure. Because we have just missed this last 2 classes, I have tried to follow through the recording, but yeah, just with a quick recap.
Yes, definitely. I'll go recap. So the 3rd chapter, focus on karma yoga. Again, the discussion started with Arjuna with a follow-up question on. He was not able to understand what did Krishna really meant. Did he really meant to that he should be situated just in the platform of knowledge, right? If that's what the impression he got. And he says if that's the case, then why is Krishna asking him to be engaged in a war, right? Why he should act if knowledge is ultimate thing. So Krishna basically clarifies that when one is situated in knowledge doesn't mean one stops acting, but what it means is that one acts in proper consciousness. Earlier one is acting, but one is working, but one does not know why one is working. What is the purpose of that work? How one should work with, right? Because most people, initially, at least before someone takes spirituality or Krishna consciousness, the attitude is a fruitive mentality. That means we want to work in order to achieve some result. And when one is situated in knowledge, when one is not working out of fruitive mentality, one acts for the satisfaction of Vishnu. That means one offers the results of one's work in service of Krishna, right? So Krishna then introduces the concept of yajna. So he explains the entire cycle of yajna, that living entities, they subsist on food grains. Food grains come from rain. Rain occurs by it's provided by the benediction from demigods who are acting on behalf of Krishna, right? And then in order to do yajna, one has to offer the fruits of one's work. What work? Not any other work. Work of prescribed duties, right? Not any random work. Where are the prescribed duties described? They are described in the Vedas. Where do Vedas come from? Vedas come from Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So in this way, the supreme truth pervades everywhere. Especially, it pervades specifically, that verse mentioned, it resides in yajna. So in this way, Krishna introduces the concept of yajna, right? And then the conversation ensues. Then Krishna says that why it is important to perform one's prescribed duties, right? If one see, ordinary man, they follow or imitate the leaders, right? Whatever the leaders do, they simply follow that. And so if the leaders, if they are themselves not doing the prescribed duties to set an example, then it brings about the ruination of the world. So Krishna says, I have nothing to achieve. I'm the proprietor of everything. I'm the enjoyer of everything. Still, I perform my prescribed duties. Because if I don't do, then I will be the cause of ruination of this universe or the civilization. And he says different kings like Janaka, they performed their prescribed duties and they achieved perfection just by doing that. So in this way, he's encouraging Arjuna to perform his prescribed duties, right? So he gives, then he compares, an ignorant person performs the duties with attachment, while person in knowledge, right, performs the same duties, but not in ignorance, with proper consciousness, right? Externally, both appear same, but one who is situated in knowledge is not attached to the fruitive results. Ignorant man, they are attached to the fruitive results. So a learned man, again, should not condemn those who are attracted by fruitive results. Rather, they should engage them as long as they are acting on a moral platform and they are doing their prescribed duties according to their nature. Because what will happen is, in due course of time, the fruitive mentality, in the sense that the desire is there, right, initially, but one does not get enough satisfaction because of law of diminishing returns. And then because if one is engaged according to one's nature, then one can continue. And then that work is worthy of offering to Krishna, because or aspiring some results from it, just like the bhoga that we offer to Krishna. We prepare it in a consciousness that Krishna is the enjoyer, I am not the enjoyer. Even you're cooking, we should not think that, hey, this is for my enjoyment, let me cook this, right? Similarly, work also, we spend significant time of our day working, though we have dedicated time chanting and doing other spiritual activities. Significant time of our work, the significant time of our day is spent in working. So instead of trying to segregate our lives, say we have a material life and a spiritual life, that's a very narrow-minded view. We should see everything as spiritual. Our all existence, all activities that we do, if we follow dharma, then everything is spiritual. So the work can also be spiritual, right? And anyway, we have to work. And Krishna says earlier that, hey, you cannot even maintain your body, Arjuna, if you don't work. So rather than whimsically working, if we pick up a profession or action, work which is according to our nature, or in this, what does it mean to to be engaged according to our nature? It means that work that we would do even if we are not good at it, or even if we fail at it, or even if it is troublesome to do it, we are impelled to I have to do this, right? And so it's such a kind of work, we are naturally impelled to do it. So there's no question of whether I get results or not. You're not seeking any you're not primarily motivated by getting the results. And so such work is worthy of offering to Krishna. As the example of bhoga that I gave, the food that is prepared not with a sense gratificatory desire, right? No, that can be worthy of offering to Krishna. So this is the understanding. Then the last class, what we discussed was, people who are attached by the results, we should not disturb them. Rather, let them continue their engagement as long as they are engaged according on a moral platform according to their nature. So then Krishna asked Arjuna, in this way you should work for offering all the results unto me with full knowledge of me, without desiring for profit, right? No claims on proprietorship. Arjuna was thinking earlier that, well, if I win this war, then I am the proprietor. And then I was thinking whether I will be able to enjoy that or not. Right? So those are all desires for profit, proprietorship over kingdom. So be free from lethargy and fight. Here, lethargy is lethargy of conviction, or the proper reason why one should fight. So those persons who execute their duties according to my injunction, who follow this teaching faithfully without envy, they are able to overcome the bondage of fruitive actions. Why? Right? And then this we have discussed at length earlier, how one is free from the karmic reaction. The karmic reaction comes from desires, right? Desire is the primary cause, but when one is not desirous of results, of course this cannot be artificially introduced, and that's why the varna system is there, because in absence of varna system it's not possible to do any work without fruitive desires. That's why many times people ask that Krishna says, you should not have any desire for results. How is that possible? They are right. It's not possible, right? Later in 18th chapter, Krishna says, Jnanam Geyam Abhigyata, knowledge, object of knowledge, the object and the knower. These are the three causes of impetus, what propels us for action. So what is object of knowledge? Object of knowledge is the object that we desire, right? If you want to earn money, well, you need to have, you have some idea or some knowledge about, hey, this is the profession, and you have knowledge about that profession. And what's the object of the knowledge? Well, by being engaged in that profession, I'm going to get the results. So that is the object of knowledge. And the knower, who is the knower? Well, the person who is desirous of that object of knowledge, and that knower becomes the worker eventually, right? So it's the same person. So yeah, it is not possible to be engaged without fruitive mentality unless one is systematically engaged, according to the varnashram system, and at least one is engaged in a profession where one is impelled to act, regardless of one's liking or difficulties. When one is that is what is one's nature is. And then eventually, because material things, we lose the taste for it after some time, right? That is the nature, because we are spirit souls. Matter can only attract us to some extent. Like, sometimes, there's when people, they are attracted to some musics, some music albums, they listen, and after some time they get bored with it, right? Why they get bored with it? That's the nature, because it's only, earlier it sounds attractive because it's different. Now they need something even more different, right? So that variety is what keeps them, and actually you're not satisfied with any of those. Right? That's why they have so many channels on the cable TV, or so many music, different variety, to satisfy the ears, the tongue, different kind of food, and but none of them can satisfy the soul. That's the nature. With matter, we can never be satisfied. That's why people want variety, or in case of fruity results, they want higher and higher stimulation. It's like addiction to the drugs. What happens is earlier, when somebody starts taking drugs, they get a kick out of it, but then same dose, they won't get the kick, like the law of diminishing returns. Then in order to stimulate them, you need a higher dose. If they don't take a higher dose, they won't get the same kick. Then in order to get the same amount of kick, you need even higher dose, right? And then eventually they destroy the body. So same thing happens, when we are not impelled according to our nature, then we need higher and higher stimulation. In the same job, once somebody takes up a new job, and they will get a significant bump in salary, and they're very excited, right? So 1 year goes, and the next year in the appraisal, if the salary does not increase, earlier first year they were super excited, the second year they are not excited, they are getting the same salary, huh? But then there is no motivation to really put one's effort in it unless they bump the salary. So that's why they have this. You have to constantly stimulate people, either by increase in remuneration, position, power, so many, this benefit, that benefit. But when one is engaged according to one's nature, then one doesn't need such, the law of diminishing returns will act. That won't go away, but uh, that won't stop one from acting. So that is the secret of karma yoga. And then that work becomes pure and worthy of offering to Krishna. Okay, so similarly, one who is actually not following the prescribed duties, right? If by out of envy they disregard the teachings, do not follow them regularly, then they are bereft of knowledge. They are simply chasing some imagination, and then all their endeavors will be ruined, and they won't achieve perfection. So this is the summary of discussion, the Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 so far, what we have discussed. I know I'm reiterating, but it's important. Every time we reiterate, it gets reinforced in our mind. Okay, so verse number 33. Sadrisham chestate swasya prakritirjnanavan api prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Translation: even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? It's a pretty profound statement. So this nature that one has, one is impelled or forced to act according to one's nature. You cannot repress it. So rather than repressing, we should dovetail that in the service of Krishna. So one's nature is composed of the three modes of nature, right? Sattva gun, rajagun, tamogun. Prakriti. Prakriti is nature. Modes of nature, right? So three modes of nature: goodness, passion, ignorance. And there are a lot of factors which affect this. What are the factors that affect this? Well, Bhagavatam says there are 10 factors. One of them is birth. Then the other is place. There is time. The water that we drink in the place. The samskaras that we receive. It goes in much more detail, but there are always so many factors which affect one's. That's why they're called samskaras. The modes. So there are multiple factors that affect us, and the nature. If you want to go about, you can go in deep. This topic is quite deep, and if you look at a society, there's always this strife of classes. Generally, if you all over the world, you see this caste system or class system, or sometimes there are difference of races, and the modern understanding is that, well, all this is artificial. If you give equal opportunities to everyone, all men are equal. And then if you give equal opportunities and train everyone, then anyone can achieve perfection. So while the other view is that, well, you have a nature, and then that nature remains, that nature does not change. And so this is this completely different worldviews. So one worldview is the nature innate, it's by your birth, or is it inculcated, meaning is it cultivated by samskaras and training. And all over the world, if you see, if historically those classes which have been exploited by unscrupulous men, then the idea is that, well, these people did not have opportunities because they were exploited. Ultimately all men are equal, and so we need to correct. So how do you correct? He says, well, you have to give reservations, right? So even in the West, in America, there is in universities they would say, well, whatever the distribution of the population is across all the races, right? And since all men are equal, then in the universities you should see the same amount of participation, right? If a particular race is 5% of the population, then you should see a 5% representation in the university, because after all men are equal, all races are equal. And the only reason you don't see that representation in the universities, for instance, right? There was a case that was filed by South Asians saying that South Asians, they comprise 30 to 40% of application if there is no reservations. And say, but that makes so why are other races not showing up? Is it because they are structurally disadvantaged? That means they did not get enough opportunities in their childhood. And why they did not get? Because their previous generations were exploited. So it's deep running. It's not just one generation thing. It's multi-generational. This entire history of exploitation of a particular race, and so they have structurally been exploited. So they need a boost. Otherwise, all men are equal, right? And so if those from underrepresented classes and races, in India also they have this, right? So you have certain castes, they have this reservation. And because they have been exploited, still they are able to get get certain levels of grades or perform in the schools. But then it's not it might not be as good as some of your highest ranking students, but the fact that they were able to get that despite of being structurally disadvantaged, that means they need an additional boost. And so the representation in the universities should be should reflect what is in the society. So that is worldview. So that worldview is based on the fact that ultimately the samskaras matter, in the sense that if you give equal opportunity and equal training and upbringing to everyone, then all of them will fructify nicely. That is one worldview. The other worldview, the people who exploited these classes, and traditionally there has been exploitation in whether you take India or the West, some races and castes have been exploited. But their worldview is that your nature is fixed at birth, right? And then because this is your nature, then you are engaged according to whatever your nature you acquired at time of birth, right? And you cannot expect anything better out of these people. And so that's the system that needs to be perpetuated, right? So these are completely two different worldviews. So which one is correct, right? Right here, Krishna says one has to act according to that nature. The question is, what is that nature? Is that nature according to birth? Is it innate or is it inculcated? So what do you think? What's the answer? Any thoughts? Who is right? Are those people who say that your nature is fixed at birth, and and that decides your nature, and you are engaged according to that? Or is the other worldview correct, that well, birth is not a factor, ultimately is the upbringing and whatever environment one is immersed in, one based on that training and samskaras, one can flourish and grow accordingly?
Uh, uh, what I think is maybe the last one which you spoke, that the upbringing and sanskaras. But again, if you give the same amount to everyone, but that again depends on the individual soul, that how one is taking up. I mean, we all sit into the same class and we get lectures. Even we are learning now Gita from you, and but the thing is that based on my own interest. So every soul has their own awareness about something, what they are into, and then the more you get engrossed into it, the more you get out of it. So, and maybe that could define that you reach up to the different levels. And I read somewhere that like uh, people, for example, you look at the sunlight, right? I mean, so some people, they get attracted to the sunlight, so they don't want to go beyond that. Some people want to learn that how the sun actually operates, and some
Right.
people who has that tendency, they can go to the Surya Loka and then they can do something over there. So these are the three types of people, though they are getting the same inputs and everything, but there is a difference for sure. And that's my thought.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. What do others think? Does anyone have another opinion? Nitin Prabhu, what do you think?
Yes, Prabhuji, I think it's similar to what Maulik Prabhu said. Like I think you had mentioned it in the temple once that there is something called prarabdha. Like you are born with that. Uh, prarabdha is more on the fate side, but the point is like the soul has some
Purusharth.
impressions.
Prarabdha and Purusharth, yeah.
Yeah. So you have some impressions from your past life, from your past karma, which might play a role in like what your initial inclination is, but then as you get associated with the right kind of people, you might start generating that kind of interest as well. So it could be a mix of both.
Good. Yeah, so that's very, very true. So it's a mixture of both, right? Both your birth is a factor, and the samskaras that one receives is a factor. Both are factor. And then you give the same samskaras to two individuals, for instance, then the result would be different. It won't be same, right? Because then they have some impressions of the nature from their previous life, right? Also, and so both are definitely a factor. So what the liberals, they ignore the fact that you come with certain samskaras from your previous life. So they ignore and they only focus on the fact that what really matters is what kind of upbringing and what kind of opportunities you provide. And so they think that, well, you create equal opportunities for everyone and then you'll have this classless society. Yeah, so it's a phantasmagoria. That's never going to happen. On the other hand, the conservatives also have a limited understanding in the sense that they're following scriptures, but they don't understand the real reason or the tradition, and they say that, well, one has acquired a certain nature by birth and that cannot be changed. So that is the other extreme, right? So they do not recognize that at all and says just by birth they will cast them into a particular box or a category, and then this is your caste, means this is what you are and there's no scope for any improvement. So that view is also incorrect. So yeah, your nature can be changed. Nature can be changed by upbringing. So now, why does the varnashram system does not encourage that? Why is the tradition, the people who exploited the tradition because they did not have the proper understanding, and so they said their nature cannot be changed. But how? There must be some reason why did they got that wrong understanding. Why did the conservatives, they ended up with the wrong understanding that nature cannot be changed? There should be a reason. The scriptures say that it can be changed, but then if you see the tradition has been, well, whatever your birth is, then then one receives the samskaras according to the birth. That is the tradition. right? Historical, if you see, one is born in a varna, and so your birth first defines the varna, and you'll receive samskara according to your birth. So what is the reason for that? Why not then give equal opportunities to everyone? Yeah, Maulik, you want to say something?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, what I think is, I mean, in some ways, this varnashram society, especially in our India, it has uh, failed, and that's the reason, because people always think that, by birth, uh, I'm Kshatriya, I'm Vaishya, I'm Shudra, whatever is your surname, and then you should follow that. But if you look at today's world, then in tech, like IT industry, or you go to any other industry, I mean, you will find people with all this kind of surname. So basically, they are coming from all varnas. So I believe that birth and varna, that two are two different things. We have a classic examples of Durvasa Muni and also Lord Parsuram, which, I mean, they were totally opposite. What they got birth in and what their prakriti was, so they followed their prakriti, and they created big example. So I believe that that's based on individual's nature or prakriti, and not related to birth. But again, it could be my view. However, if I look at our society, I mean, we are still struggling, because people think that, by birth you are this, but your nature says that no, I mean, I am not fit to this job. Maybe I should do something else. And then a guy who is getting a birth as a Brahman, and he is going into a military, and then he is working as a Kshatriya, and then somebody as a Kshatriya, he is taking a job as a I mean, he becomes a doctor, and then he's doing something else. So still, we are struggling. I mean, that's what I see, and that's where we are lacking also.
Right. So one thing in the modern society, the problem is that after birth, they don't receive the samskaras. So birth is the beginning point, right? It's a seed. Now one has to receive nourishment. So if somebody is born in a Brahmana and then in the upbringing, one is not receiving the Brahmana samskaras, then his Brahmana nature is lost. Similarly, born in a Kshatriya family, but one is not receiving Kshatriya samskaras by training. He sees his uncle, fathers, brothers fighting, and what kind of nature they have, and they absorb that nature from family tradition. And so then they become real Kshatriyas. That's why if you see the scriptures, what is it? We have discussed this earlier. Janmana jayate sudra samskara bhave dvija. The second birth comes from samskaras, not from birth. And the dvija is twice born. So second birth comes from samskaras, and so the samskaras are important. So in the modern society, because everyone gets monolithic education, they all go to the common school system, so everyone is getting the same samskaras. So that is completely destroyed. But my question is, traditionally, why did the traditional society also did not have a universal system? Why were they saying that, oh, you're born in Brahmana, you receive Brahmana samskaras? You're born as a Kshatriya, you receive Kshatriya samskaras, right? Why were they not? Because your nature can be changed. By samskaras, your nature can be changed, but then why did they give the same samskaras that one was born in? That is the question. And it is because that they saw the tradition, those people who later exploited the lower varnas, because they saw the tradition, they said, oh, since generations, we give the same samskaras as one is born. And so that is that, so then they say that your nature cannot be changed, right? So they came to that wrong conclusion. But what was the original reason? That's the question. Why did traditionally one gave the same samskaras in which one was born? Because by samskara someone can be changed. Why not give a different samskara or let the kids decide?
Was it because of Varna Shankara, Prabhuji? Like they were concerned that it will dilute the, like what Hitler tried to do.
Yeah, you can say that's also reason, right? Because if somebody is born in a particular family, that means he has that past samskaras, and now you're trying to change it. That's one reason. There are other reasons. If you want to give it a try, I'll let you, or else I'll give the answer. So Yeah, you want to say something, Kashyap Prabhu?
Prabhu, yeah. Hello everyone. I think it is because it is natural for a kid to get the same samskaras that their parents have, because the kid will watch their parents whatever they do, and if the parent is a brahmana, it is possible that he will continue to see what brahmanas do, and based on that he will build his own samskara. And by birth he might be something, but by looking at his parents he might acquire those samskaras, and that's the reason they might have said whoever born in one varna, he will continue to be the same varna.
Good. Yeah, that's a good reason. Again, there's more to it also. The more to is practical difficulty. Suppose you want to say that, and what you mentioned is absolutely correct. You are born in a particular family. Naturally, that's the environment you are absorbed in, right? So you naturally receive the samskaras of the family, right? And vice versa, you are put into that family because you have that tendency or the nature from your previous birth, right? So in that way, that is there. The other practical difficulty is, suppose you say, no, I should give other samskaras, then which one should I give, right? He's born in a Brahmana family. The child has no volition. Child does not understand anything. Samskaras, they start at an early age. Should I raise my child as a Kshatriya? Should I raise as a Vaishya? Now you have choices. Now what is the criteria for choices now, right? So that is another challenge. And then even if you select something at random, well, how are you going to immerse that child in that samskaras? Because the child is with you, it's growing with you, right? So those are some practical challenges. The philosophical reason why they do it is that ultimately, if you look at what is karma yoga means you want to come to the platform of you want to act without fruitive results. You don't want a fruitive mentality. And what is that? When one acts without fruitive mentality means one is the mode of goodness. Goodness means, you're doing it in a sense of duty. You're not trying to achieve something. You're trying to achieve something that is passion, right? So passion and ignorance, they bring us down. They degrade us. So first of all, one has to rise up to sattva guna. Sattva guna means one is satisfied. And when one is satisfied, one does not want to change the nature. The very fact that somebody wants to change one's varna or acquire a different nature, that itself is it's activity in the mode of passion, right? One wants to change one varna. Any kind of change one is seeking, right? That is passion. They want to achieve. So scripture, they say that, see, even if you're a brahmana or a kshatriya, that is still, you are still within the three modes of nature. You have to rise above the three modes of nature. So this whole idea of trying to be this varna, that varna, you are still, you are still bound by karmic reaction. Because suppose somebody changes from one varna to another varna, but as long as one is still continuing to act with fruitive mentality, one is going to be bonded, right? The bondage will occur. So changing varna is not going to help. Yes, varna can be changed. It's not that it cannot be changed. It can be changed. But what is one going to achieve by changing one's varna? Because the problem is not this varna or that varna. The problem is one has to stop acting according to fruitive mentality, right? So better, instead of trying to temporarily change something, right, which is material, be satisfied with whatever you got by birth. Rather be situated and nourish, make that nature stronger, receive that samskaras. And so you're now fixed because you already have from your birth. Now you receive that samskaras by being brought up in that family, then that nature becomes strong or pure, like, not varna sankara. You don't want to mix it. And so when that nature is strengthened or reinforced by receiving the same samskaras, then one is fixed in that varna. And then that one can be really propelled to act according to that nature. And when one is acting according to nature, then one can easily come to the platform of goodness, to act in mode of goodness without fruitive mentality. That work is worthy of offering to Krishna. And then one can perform karma yoga. And so even one is situated in a Sudra or a Vaishya or whatever varna, one can achieve the highest perfection of life just within this lifetime. So that is a system. You don't have to, sequentially progress from Sudra to Vaishya to Kshatriya, Brahmana. It's not a hierarchical system. By simply acting in according to one's nature and offering the results of the fruits to as a yajna, one can achieve the highest perfection. So that is how the original system was. Because as soon as you want to change something, that itself means that one is not properly situated. It's a mode of passion. So that was the traditional reason. And over a period of time, it was exploited by unscrupulous people. So it's not that a Brahmana is better than a Sudra or anything. They go through more refinement of samskaras, because Brahmanas, they have to, if you think of, there's a crude oil, right? And then there is a refinery, there is a you kind of a distillation. And the more refinement it happens, right? So at the bottom level you have tar, and the highest level you have the gasoline that's used in airplanes, right? The air fuel that requires the highest level of refinement. So samskaras are like that. Brahmanas, they have to go through more levels of refinement. That doesn't mean they are better or anything. It's just there are different distillation. You distill those, but one can be situated in what everyone has a utility, right? And then one, Krishna does not make such distinctions. It's not, there is no higher or lower in that sense. On an external perspective, you can say that the work of Vaishyas or Sudras is more affected by the modes of passion and ignorance. But if one is self-satisfied, then one is in goodness. There is a difference. The nature of the work that they do, right? That nature of that work might be more in passion and ignorance. But if one is self-satisfied, then one can be, is elevated to the platform of pure goodness. And so what they are trying to do, the system is that that's why they reinforce the nature that they have acquired. So that's the answer. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, or if that makes sense. You agree, you disagree, you just want to get some thoughts.
So Prabhuji, under what circumstances did Parshuramji, like he was born as a Brahmana, but he was mostly acted as a Kshatriya?
So in case of Parsuram and Vishwamitra, what happened, I'm trying to recall the name of the father, that Rishi, the pastime is described in Srimad Bhagavad. Was it Jamdagni, you're right, Jamdagni. So Jamadagni, was it Jamdagni was the father of Parshuram, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but
And
his father. So I think the story goes to Parshuram's grandfather, and that's the name I'm not able to recall. I'll tell you once I find out. But it was Parshuram's grandfather. He actually was approached by his. Just a sec. Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, I was saying it's Parshuram's grandfather. he was approached, his wife was seeking a child, and then his mother-in-law was also seeking a child. So he prepared a special oblation. He was a mystic yogi, and then he he gave one oblation to his wife and another to his mother-in-law, and then he departed. So he actually was of a Brahmana Varna, right? But his mother-in-law, she had married to a Kshatriya. Okay. And so he had prepared an Brahman oblation or pinda of of Brahmana nature he had given to his wife, and then one of Kshatriya nature he had given to his mother-in-law. Now the mother-in-law, she thought that, what, my, a husband is always, more affectionate towards the wife. So he must have given a better oblation to my daughter. And so what she did, she exchanged, right, without consulting the Muni. And, they consumed those, that oblation. And so later on, when he found out, he was very angry. He said, you should not have done that. Now, because of this, what's going to happen is that a Brahmana would be born to your mother, a Brahmana son, and you will have a very fierce Kshatriya as your son. And so his wife was very scared, and she begged that, no, I don't want to have a child who is a fierce Kshatriya. So she was begging to undo. But says, I cannot, it's already like an arrow that is shot cannot be retracted. But one thing that I could do is that if you desire, I can postpone, in the sense that your son will be Brahmana, but your grandson will be a fierce Kshatriya. And so that is Parshuram. So even in this situation, we see that, that the nature was, acquired prior, right? It's not, and so, and that was so strong, even so that just says that your samskaras from previous birth could be so strong that even though he was then raised in a Brahmana family, right, the nature was of the Kshatriya was very prominent, right? And so Vishwamitra was born to his mother-in-law, right? And so Vishwamitra, he was born in a Kshatriya family, but he had Brahminical nature, right? And then we had Parshuram, who had a Kshatriya nature and was born in a Brahmana family. But still he claimed himself to be a Brahmana, though he had a Kshatriya nature. And that actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that he set the precedent for the beginning of the destruction of Varnashram system. Because despite of the Kshatriya nature, he claimed to be a Brahmana. Right? He did not embrace the Brahmana population. He was so upset with the Kshatriya kings who were not righteous that he annihilated them, 21 times, right? So he did not like Kshatriyas. He identified himself always as Brahmana. And so he is the first one who started claiming Varna by birth, not according to nature. And that kind of reinforced the idea, and then that was the kind of beginning of it set up a system where, if somebody born in a Kshatriya family had Brahminical natures, exceptional cases, right? But even those exceptional cases which were allowed earlier, they were kind of put to stop. Because he claimed, if he had claimed that, okay, I'm a Kshatriya nature, I'll accept the Kshatriya Varna, then, it would have been fine, but he did not. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that how the Varnashram system destruction started coming about. And so because now the Kshatriyas, they were frustrated, because if some Kshatriya, if they had Brahminical quality, they were not recognized as a Brahmana, because Parshunam, he started this, and in a way, a violation of the principles where, ultimately one's nature should be recognized, but he still claimed that, no, I am a Brahmana, right? And so similarly, Kshatriyas, they were not allowed to take a Brahminical Varna, even if they had their nature. So they got frustrated. And because what did they do in frustration? They rejected the Varnashram Dharma. Because Vedic culture is Varnashram Dharma. And so they rejected the Vedic culture. And do you know what they did? They became Buddhists. That's why you see a lot of these Buddhists, are from Kshatriya background. So Ashoka, right? Eventually, that's much later that happened. But in general, the Kshatriyas, they rejected the Varna culture, the entire Vedic culture, and they became Buddhists. Similarly, the Vaishyas also had no chance of taking up another Varna, even in those exceptional situations where if somebody has a Kshatriya quality or Brahminical quality, despite of their low samskaras they might have received, right? If somehow they have that, then they should be acknowledged. But that was rejected, so they got frustrated. They also rejected the Varnashram system, Vedic Dharma. You know what happened to them? Anyone wants to guess? They became Jains. Yeah.
Jain, yeah.
So you see the Jain community, they are very good in business, so that Vaishya mentality is very strong. Earlier, the Jains were all over India, especially so Jainism started in South India actually. They became the followers of Rishabdev. So Rishabdev is also incarnation of Vishnu, but they did not follow the instructions of Vishnu. They started imitating him. They did not follow the instructions of Rishabdev. It's very beautiful instruction, the 5th canto. He's himself the incarnation of Vishnu, but they started imitating him, and because Rishabdev used to go about naked everywhere, but his stool and urine he used to pass and sometimes sit in there, but his stool and urine was fragrant. So he started imitating him, and that was the beginning of another atheistic religion of Jainism. But then the Vaishnava Acharyas, who significantly appeared in South India, beginning with Ramanujacharya, then Madhvacharya, they re-established Vaishnavism and they drove all the Vaishyas out. So, the Jains out. So that's why Jainism is not prominent in South India. And then they moved up north. So you see Jains in Gujarat, Rajasthan, even some Bihar. So the north is still there. And same the Vaishnava Acharyas, when they appeared, they drove all the Buddhists out. So in India, Buddhism is completely gone, but they all fled to Southeast Asia, Japan, China, Tibet. So the Buddhists, so these atheism's philosophy, both Jainism and Buddhism, when they came, they were defeated, and then they were driven out of India to re-establish the Vaishnava culture. But that's the story. How Buddhism and Jainism flourished. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that. So this is a history, and he explains that as long as Varnashram system was strong, the society never collapsed, because everyone, you don't need. Why did the Roman civilization collapse? Roman civilization eventually they had to, for them to keep on expanding their empire, they needed more and more army and soldiers. But they were not Kshatriyas. They used to have mercenaries hired for money, and they had to pay them. And these people used to go and fight for money, and then how much money? I mean, the gold and silver, whatever they used, they started diluting it. They would mix copper, tin, right? And ultimately, it was junk currency, right? No one's going to accept it, and the society collapsed. So those were not based on Varnashram system. But India, when people were, the system was so strong, India was unconquerable, full of riches. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that as long as Varnashram was strong, India could not be captured, because one is propelled by one's nature. You don't need to pay anyone money. They are impelled. There's no fruitive motivation for them to work. They are so much strongly situated in the Varna culture. They are impelled by that nature. Such a society never collapses. Then he does future analysis and prediction. He says the Western society has progressed, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared in the 19th century, and then the Europeans, they were colonizing different parts of the world, and they had steam engines and other mechanic machines. So he says, they had, by their great entrepreneurship, or the risk taking capabilities, and they have made progress, but they won't survive. The civilization won't last because it is not based on scientific principles of varnashram system. It's not sustainable. You'll always need some external stimulus. It could be external energy, say fossil fuels. That's just one thing. But if you look at the modern civilization, it is sustained based on cheap energy and cheap money, right? Fossil fuels. And then they're soon realizing that fossil fuels is not only causing global warming, but it is a limited resource. It cannot go forever, right? Why they go deep in the middle of the ocean and drill 7 miles down below the ocean of the floor, right? Because all the oil on the land is exhausted, right? Earlier in Texas, you go and you dig 2 feet, and then there is a gushing oil that comes out. None of that exists. Why they have to go all the way up to Alaska? Why regions which are inaccessible, unstable politically, right? So, but then the thing is, solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, all this earlier we used to consume. Solar energy was always there, but we directly consume. If you want to use solar energy to create electricity, or hydro or wind to create electricity, that energy, you need batteries, complex electronics, electricals. All of those are byproducts of petrochemical industry. So if you take fossil fuel out of it, even the renewable energy cannot survive. You have crunches of rare metal resources. How many batteries you gonna make? The only renewable energy historically is manpower and animal power. That's the real renewable energy. So without fossil fuel, one cannot say. And then one is cheap money, right? There is no real money. It's all paper currency, which is not tied to gold. It's not even paper now. It's all digital, right? So the central banks, they can just create money out of thin air, right? So why is it called fractional reserve system? Every time you go and buy a loan, it's the banks, they give you loan from money that they don't have it. The money is created as soon as you borrow loan. If the fractional reserve, the reserve ratio, they have reserve ratio, all central banks of the world, they have it. Say the reserve ratio is 1:10. That means if the bank has, say, $10,000, as long as they deposit any bank deposits $10,000 in the central bank, they can give 100,000 as a loan, right? So where did the 90,000 come from? Out of thin air. So what are they doing? They're doing what the Romans did, right? They are just creating money out of thin air. So there's no real money. So ultimately, you need higher and higher amount of stimulation. Why? What is inflation? Why does thing get costly, right? Well, inflation happens because money is created out of thin air. You always have more money chasing the same amount of goods. So when people are motivated purely based on money, that society also cannot sustain long, right? So as soon as the money goes away, there's no motivation to work. So civilizations all over the world, they have collapsed when the varnashram system, it's based on other external motivators. For millions of years, India was sustained because the varnashram system was intact. So this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. But when one is not situated and engaged according to their nature, that civilization does not have much hope. So anyway, we had a long discussion on this, but I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Prabhuji, and very interesting also.
Yeah, it's the foundation. It's we live in a society, and of course, bhakti is the highest, but then it has, it needs a strong foundation also. Krishna says earlier, right? One who does not asantasya kutha sukham, when there is no peace, where is the question of happiness, right? When we talk about peace, has to be mental, physical, social peacefulness. All this foundation has to be based on solid varnashram system. So now we don't know how to recreate. If the system is there, it went on for millions of years. You do not need any intervention. Now it is lost. How do you reintroduce it? And no one knows. We don't know. It's one thing to keep going, and it's another thing to start something, right? So that's the challenge. So anyway, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also prays that by the mercy of Krishna, may an empowered person appear and re-establish Varnashram. So that's his prayer. It's a pure devotee's prayer, has some significance. We'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll continue with our discussion purport. So in purport, Srila Prabhupada says, yeah, so the whole discussion started because of nature. This is, all the social problems, the society, modern society is so confused because they do not understand what is that nature. The liberals and the progressives, they have found out that historically people have been exploited based on their birth. So they were right in finding out, what the limitation, the limited understanding that the wrong understanding that the conservatives had, who exploited people by their birth. They were intelligent to find that, but they were not sincere. If they're sincere, they would have inquired further. How is it that all over the world they had the same system, right? It's not that by how comes this corrupted thing happened all over the world, right? What was the original motivation? Why they did not inquire? If they had inquired, then they would have come to the right conclusion, and they would find out that, why the system was like that. So instead of trying to now create a classless society, the corrective action that they would have taken, if they were sincere and they would have found out the right reason, that stop the exploitation, continue with the classes, but then do it with the right perspective, what the original perspective was, what was the right attitude. So that's what Krishna consciousness movement, all the changes generally that we require are subtle. There's nothing drastic. The system of the classes was already there. All they had to change was the somehow inculcate that proper consciousness among the masses. First of all, come to the right conclusion and do it for the right reason instead of doing the wrong reason. So the right thing was being done for wrong reasons, and now they're doing wrong thing for wrong reasons, right? So two negatives don't make one positive, right? So the entire society is lost, and it's very sad. So what they are trying to chase in trying to create a classless society is also it's never achievable. The communists tried it. They had a different way of creating a classless society. Their idea was, well, everyone produces according to their needs, by their capacity, and then you get according to their needs, and everyone is equal. There's no difference. So that's why they call everyone comrade, right? The communists, everyone is a comrade. Comrade Stalin, right? Comrade Lenin. But they are the highest echelons of the society. They are sitting on the top. They are not comrade. They are not working in the fields. They are not working in the labor camps. They are getting all the luxuries, right? So they wanted to create a classless society, but in order to build a classless society, they needed a hierarchy. You see the contradiction. Similarly, the capitalists, they say that we want to liberate everyone by giving all equal opportunities. Everyone should have equal access to everything, and they can all make their own fortune. So it's not exactly it. On the surface, it's a different way of doing things, but ultimately they are trying to create a classless society where you're not reinforcing the way that communists did it, but that's why the liberals, even in America, they are called what they call they are called socialists, right? He says you're just freely giving medical services to everyone, and you want to create this. In order to create equality, you are having reservations, right? So in universities or other places, all races should be equally represented. Because fundamentally everyone is equal, then all of whatever distribution of population you see in the population, same should be reflected in the schools, the universities, other institutions, right? So then the only reason it's not being reflected because somehow that exploitation continues either structurally, subconsciously, and so now they are trying to correct for that. This is a corrective mechanism, and that's also a futile exercise. So it's all confusion, and so Kali Yuga, People are confused. Anytime you see two people disagreeing, then generally both are wrong. That's one thing to take away, in the sense that they are they are talking different perspective on the, but actually in essence they are on the same platform. Just two sides of the same coin. The same problem gets manifested differently, like excessive attachment. Sometimes people excessive attachment sometimes result into rejection of something. Yeah, they repulse. So repulsion is just another form of excessive attachment. So on the surface it appears repulsion and attachment are two different things. Why one has this repulsion towards something? Because you are excessively attached and you're saying, oh, this is not good. And they're artificially trying to reject it or repulse it. So that's why this world is full of dualities. Why is this called full of dvanda mohena bharata? So one has to rise beyond these dualities. So we, the devotees, we should have a better understanding of the philosophy, and we should see from the perspective of shastra chakshu, and should not get entangled in all these debates and discussions. Anytime there is a strong debate, generally both sides are wrong. Generally, most of the time, they are all affected by dualities. The same problem with two different symptoms. Both is based on incorrect understanding. Okay. So the purport Srila Prabhupada says, unless one is situated on transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot be free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed later in the 70th chapter. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. It's an important point. Even those who are educated, or even they have studied scriptures, it is impossible to get out of entanglement of Maya by a theoretical knowledge. One has to practically act. Like Arjuna says, why cannot we be simply situated in knowledge? Why you are forcing me to be engaged in this horrible war? Right? So it's not a theoretical understanding. One has to act on it. So there are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in science, but inwardly or privately they are completely under the particular modes of nature, which they are unable to surpass. You see, academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. So just by knowledge, one does not achieve perfection. That knowledge has to be realized knowledge, and then one has to cultivate renunciation. And renunciation means not artificially renouncing. First, one has to learn to be engaged in activities which might appear as activities that ordinary people are doing, but one slowly cultivates renunciation. How? Well, that's the process of yajna. You offer the results of your work as a sacrifice to Krishna. And so by that one comes to the practical realization that I am not the enjoyer, Krishna is the enjoyer. And then when one is acting as a matter of duty, without fruitive motivation, impelled by one's nature, then the fruitive mentality does not come, and one is now situated in renunciation. So when one cultivates both knowledge and renunciation, then that one can make spiritual progress. And karma yoga, right? Karma yoga means not just simply karma, actually jnana yoga, what Krishna calls. Jnana yoga is proper understanding, and acting according to that proper understanding is the means by which one can achieve that realization. Otherwise, it is superficial. So Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. How is that? Right. So I just explained how is that. Right. One comes to the understanding Krishna is the enjoyer, I am not the enjoyer. And one cultivates renunciation by performing that yajna with proper understanding, and that work when is performed without fruitive motives. Therefore, without being fully Krishna conscious, one should not give up his occupational duties. That artificial renunciation is not going to help. Falgu Vairagya. One would be forced to come back. What can repression accomplish? You cannot. It has to be gradual, organic, natural. It is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. Any questions on this particular verse?
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, I'm a bit confused.
Yes.
The thing is, for example, now let's say we put 100% into our work. Now we are entitled to get our salaries on XY. I mean, at every 25th of the month or every 2 weeks. So now, I mean, that's something which is fruit of our work, right? And then it is also necessary for us to maintain our life and lifestyle the way, and also feed our family and extended family surrounded by us. So so that's something, I mean, which is materialistic. Now when we say that, we should not think about the fruits or the material world, and then we should think, we should live in the Krishna consciousness. So I'm always getting confused that, I mean, definitely, I mean, I'm expecting the salary to come, and I mean, I need it because I need to feed my family and I need to feed myself. So how you can differentiate yourself, I mean, beyond that, and you can still live into the Krishna consciousness. So that's a question which I mean, I'm always having.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a question generally, we struggle a lot. So I'll try to explain the way you. First of all, you're right. It's not, one cannot work without material motivation, and so that is the beginning of any action, right? So I gave the example. Krishna says, "Jnanam gayam abhigyata." Krishna himself is saying, "Trivida karma chodana." So the motivation for work is the object of knowledge, right? And other two things also. So yeah, that motivation is there. So one is, and the solution to that is that if one is engaged according to that one's own nature, what will happen is, it's fine. You have material motivation, and there are basic needs for your family that one needs. Suppose let's say we're making up, like, so it depends. The cost of living is different all over the world, right? But let's say you need $100,000, right, a year to live a decent life. You're not going to be like super rich, let's say, or not a luxurious life, but as you say, you just want to maintain family, provide a decent education, a decent living. Not that you are aspiring for fancy luxury things or gadgets or things like that, right? It's okay, you need that amount of salary, $100,000, and so you're getting that. And then you get your annual dearness increment, inflation increment, and then things keep going, right? So that's all right? You need to have that some minimal maintenance. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, there are people who are very ambitious also, right? In the sense that, okay, they are seeking position, power. So it's not about earning $100,000. You say, I want $300,000, $500,000, right? I need to have a particular position in my company where I have to be a director or a vice president, a certain status in the society. So in our context, you can think of that as very fruity or very materially motivated endeavors. And people, they put a lot of effort and time in trying to achieve that. And again, through that work, they are frustrated sometimes. And even when they are achieved, the challenge is always there. So it's all relative. No matter what position you are, Bhagavatam says that you're always worried that somebody under you will overcome you. He will go beyond you. So there is constant competition with those who are superior to us, those who are equal to us, and those who are under to us. We are worried that somebody under us would overcome us. Then we are envious of our peers, and then we are fearful of our superiors and how we please them. So as an analyst, with a junior position, one starts with, one is in that consciousness. And then he becomes a manager. Nothing's changed. Relatively, his salary increased. So okay, now he's making $150,000, whatever. But he's still worried. Oh, somebody below me might overtake. He's worried about his superiors and peers. Then he becomes a director, same position, right? So the consciousness is still it's artificially his salary has increased, but he still eats the same roti, same 5 rotis or whatever one is eating. None of that has changed. More money means more wasteful spending, buy things which are not needed, unnecessary. Earlier he might be going in economy class, now he goes in a first class and he feels, oh, this is slightly better, but what difference it makes? You go from point A to point B, right? And then so it's all mental. The conception is all in the mind. So anyway, people, so that kind of proclivity, which that has to be subsided. As a devotees, we don't aspire that. Now the question is, well, then the question might be, well, I might not have motivation to work, even if suppose I get $100,000 and that's enough. But then maybe the world around me is changing, and I feel, no, I should be getting more. Why I should be getting 100,000? Maybe I'm not necessarily aspiring to be a VP or anything, but I just don't feel motivated to work. What is the stimulus for me to put the same amount of effort? Because suppose you change a job, tomorrow you get an offer with a 10% bump, and you say, wow, that's a good offer, I'm going to take it up, right? So you take it up, and you're excited, and you work enthusiastically, and then over a period of 1 year, your enthusiasm wanes. The next year you say, okay, you did not get another bump, right? You just got, okay, 2% regular increase, and now you don't have the same motivation to work. Yeah. So why does that happen? Well, it's a law of diminishing returns. So even if you're not aspiring to be super ambitious, right? Even if you are normally engaged, the motivation of work is not sustained because of law of diminishing returns. That earlier the 10% bump was so attractive to you, now it just seems, familiarity brings contempt kind of thing, right? Now you're accustomed to that level, just like we are drug addicts in one sense. The same level of stimulus does not motivate us. So to counter that, Shastra say that it's better to engage people according to their nature. And I don't know if you remember, I had forwarded an article from Harvard Business Review. It talks, it says generally people say that, hey, you pick up a profession according to your passion. Passion means something you're so passionate about, I want to do it. But passion is mental, it changes. I might be passionate about something today, but might not tomorrow. It's based on liking. Passion is based on liking. Passion is based on our skills and expertise. But that article says that choose a profession, choose your blisters, not choose your passion. And blisters, what blisters are? Blisters are if you're doing hard physical work, and if you're using the certain part of your body or hand, limb on a regular basis, it's a friction. It's chafing a tool or an object on a regular basis, and what happens is it creates a swelling. It's filled with pus, and it's a blister, and it's painful. But if you're following your blister means you keep on doing, though you might not like it, but you feel like I have to do it. You are kind of pulled towards that activity. You might not be even good at it. But you feel so much about, this is something, even if I don't like it, even if I'm not good at it, I have to do it. And over a period of time, your blisters would turn into hardened skin. You won't even have blisters anymore. That part of the body will be so hard. And that becomes your distinctive mark. And it's very nicely explained. I'll re-forward that article. And so even if you're not able to find what your varna is, and it's complicated. I say, what am I? I'm Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. But if you want to generalize it and make it simple, if you just follow what that management science says, it's the closest equivalent that you can come up with and apply in your life. As you pick up something, and sometimes it takes a time, to find that what the job is. Again, you don't have to make drastic changes even within your organization. You might have to, if some companies they support this rotation system where for 6 months you can go and try a different profession and they'll give you on-job training, on that. And so if you do something like that, then you are satisfied in the sense that you have found something that you are impelled to work. And so now you don't need that external stimulus to be motivated to work. You are attracted to that certain kind of work and you will keep working it. I give an example in the past. I think the one I keep giving always is was so impressed by this Best Buy security officer who was he helped arrest a criminal, a suspect, with police was chasing, not inside the store. He was a Best Buy electronic store security officer, but he was outside in the parking lot. He helped got that suspect arrested. The CEO was not happy. This is not part of your job duty, right? And then during duty hours, you did something that was not required. You put yourself at risk, company's brand name at risk, and anyway, so he was fired. And when the media came to interview him, he said, "Well, I'm happy what I did, and it was the right thing to do. And if it happens again, I'll do it again. And I don't, doesn't matter to me that I lost my job." So that means he has that Kshatriya nature, right? Other hand, in America, we have this school shootings, every now and then. And in Florida, it was very close to the place actually where I used to live. A couple of years ago, in Sunrise, when there was shooting was there, this cop, when he heard the shots, he did not rush in to protect the children. He was actually covering, he took a cover and he was avoiding his responsibility. Kshatriya runs right in, and tries to protect. So that's not his nature. You see, the people might be in professions that if they're not situated in the nature, they're not impelled to act. And so that's why the Varna system is based like that. Now, if we don't have that, but I'll forward that article, you have to find what we are impelled by. And then traditionally our work has 3 dimensions. One is being engaged according to our nature so that we are free from bondage of karma. The same work will also fulfill the needs, as you say, you have to maintain your family. So that work also becomes a means of maintenance for your family. It's a natural byproduct. And the third dimension is that work also provides an important service to the society, without which the society cannot exist. Now, Shastra gives 2 exceptions. The first exception it gives is that in cases of extreme emergency, when one is not able to maintain one's family by doing the work which is prescribed according to one's nature, one is allowed to take a profession of a lower varna. Lower varna in the sense lower in terms of purification. Again, otherwise there is no distinction. So Kshatriya or Brahmana could take up an activity of a Vaishya, for instance, temporarily. But once the situation improves, right, the socio-economic situation of the society world, if it improves, then when it improves, one should restore back to his original function as a Brahman. So that is because the maintenance of the family is important. So the exception around that. Third is our profession according to our nature is providing important service to the society. Now, if there is another kind of emergency where you don't have someone to provide that service to the society, say Brahmanas are not there for whatever reason, right? Maybe they were killed by an oppressor, or now the function to provide instructions is not there. Maybe if a Kshatriya or even a Vaishya, if it is learned enough, not artificially, but if it's learned enough, and traditionally that's not his nature to teach others. That's acting according to the nature. If one acts according to the nature, that position is not good, right? One is affected by karmic reactions because one is acting against one's nature. But temporarily, one is allowed to do that because the society has to continue. It's fulfilling that missing vacuum, and it's a missing service in the society no one is providing. So that person steps, a Vaishya can act as a Brahmana, can take up a duty of a higher varna to fulfill that need. But when the situation improves, when the Brahminical culture is restored, then one can go back to one's own varna. So those exceptions are allowed. So these are not absolute things. But in normal course of activity, the idea is one should engage, try to cultivate this mentality of acting without fruitive results. Now, the society is structured nicely in a varnashram system. It naturally happens. You don't have to put that extra endeavor. In due course of time, you will be naturally be inclined to act without fruitive mentality. Initially, one is engaged because of fruitive results, but in due course of time, at least if one is sincere and intelligent, in association of devotees or reading scripture, they will get some instructions, and also naturally it will happen even if it's not there. As long as one is sincere, what will happen is they will understand, oh, this is for yajna, because they are doing yajna, but they don't know why they are doing yajna. The yajna, traditionally, the culture of sacrifice is there. But if one is sincere, they will be inquisitive. Why we are offering? Okay, for satisfaction of Vishnu. And then the charm will go away. The motivation, it's the same satisfaction one won't get. But one will be propelled to act according to the nature. So it's a very long answer to your original question. But in our situation, maybe we should do what that Harvard Business Review is asking us to do. If you find, pick up something where you are forced to act, then you will be satisfied and you will keep on going despite of your likings or dislikings, and your family would be maintained as a natural outcome of it. Does it help?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and we're almost about time. We only covered one verse today, but I hope that discussion was helpful. It just clicked to me because I was thinking about the topic, and all the social issues of the world are based on very limited or incorrect understanding of what that nature is, how it is inculcated, developed, how deep it is, and how the society should be organized according to it. All the real and the perceived abuses or the differences of the classes, which within the society are all based on not understanding what one's nature is. So I think we'll stop over here, and we'll continue next Friday. I hope all of you stay safe. Kashyap Prabhu, we praying for your quick recovery of yours and your family. And as I said, if there's anything we could do, please do let us know.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Stay safe. Take care. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.